That day in the hospital, making my patient's dream come true felt like an adrenaline rush. It all started that fall. A few weeks into my new rotation, I met Rafael, quiet, polite, and unremarkable at first. His chart said he was recovering from a fractured leg after a biking accident. No big deal, right? I thought it'd be just another routine shift until I stepped into his room. "Morning, Rafael," I said, keeping it professional. "How's the pain?" His eyes met mine, dark, intense, like he could see straight through me. For a second, I forgot what I was doing. "Manageable," he said, voice warm but drained. "Thanks for asking." I sat down, pulling the stool closer. "Just Sarah," I added quickly, catching myself. His smile made my pulse stutter. I forced my mind back on track. This was just a job. I checked his vitals, made notes. Rafael responded with calm humor, joking about physical therapy and his pain. But there was something else there. He wasn't like the other patients, demanding or overly chatty. His presence had this strange pull, like I couldn't look away. "Not stuck with me again today, right?" he teased when I walked in one afternoon. "Lucky you," I shot back, trying to keep it light while my heart raced. But there were moments, those fleeting seconds, when his gaze lingered just a little too long, and I couldn't deny the tension. One evening, the hospital was quiet. I was finishing paperwork when I saw Rafael sitting up, staring out the window, his usual calm gone. I shouldn't have gone in, but something pulled me closer. "Can't sleep?" I asked softly, knocking on the doorframe. "Too much on my mind," he replied, looking surprised but not displeased. "Want to talk about it?" I asked, stepping inside. He hesitated, fingers fidgeting with his blanket. "Being stuck here makes you think about a lot of things," he said. "I've let life pass me by. Chased success and now I feel like I missed something important." "It's not too late," I said quietly. "You can change things." Rafael looked at me, searching my eyes. "You really believe that?" "I do," I said. "Thanks, Sarah," he murmured. "For listening. For not making me feel stupid." I left his room, my heart heavy with something more than professional concern. For the next few shifts, I avoided him, but something always tugged at me when I saw his name. Then, one evening, I found a note in my locker. "Sarah, if you're not in a rush, I'd like to talk. Room 314. Rafael." I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Rafael sat on his bed, leg propped up, looking at me with a strange expression. "You came," he said softly. "What's up?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "I think I like you." "More than I should," he admitted. I don't know if it's the painkillers, but I had to say it. I was silent, stunned. "It's okay," I finally said. "You don't have to apologize." "I just needed you to know," he whispered. His honesty shook me, but I couldn't ignore the pull between us. "I don't know what to say," I confessed. "You don't have to," he replied. "I just needed you to know." I was torn, unsure of the lines I was about to cross. "Rafael, it's not simple. We can't cross lines." He nodded, his voice softer. "If you want me to forget it, I will." The silence hung heavy until he asked, "Have you ever felt this way about someone you weren't supposed to?" "Yes," I whispered, the memories surfacing. "I have." Rafael's eyes softened. "Then you understand." I did. And that scared me the most. "I'm not asking for forever," he said, voice steady despite the tremor in his hand. Just for now. Whatever this is. I searched his face, no hesitation, no games. Just raw honesty. And in that moment, I couldn't resist. I leaned in, closing the distance, my voice trembling. This is insane. Maybe, he replied, his lips curving into a small, hopeful smile. But sometimes the best things are. Before I could second-guess myself, I closed the gap between us, our lips meeting in a tentative but electric kiss. It started slow, like we were testing the waters, but quickly grew more intense. For a moment, everything else vanished, there was only the two of us. Every fear, every doubt faded as I lost myself in his warmth and the certainty of his touch. When we finally pulled away, breathless, I met his eyes and saw something I didn't expect: peace. I don't know where this is going, I whispered, my voice shaky but honest. But I don't want to stop. Then don't, Rafael replied, his hand still holding mine. We'll figure it out together. For the first time in a long time, I let myself believe him. I didn't know what would come next, but I stayed close to Rafael, our breaths mingling in the quiet of his room. The weight of what had just happened was thrilling and terrifying, but we didn't move apart. For a long moment, we sat in silence, letting it speak for us. Sarah, he said softly, pulling me back to reality. Are you okay? I nodded, my heart still racing. I think so. This is a lot. He smiled reassuringly. I know. I'm sorry if I made things harder. I shook my head, meeting his gaze. It's not your fault. I just wasn't expecting any of this. Neither was I, he admitted. But now that it's here, I don't want to ignore it. His honesty sent a shiver through me. There was something about the way he spoke, unafraid of the consequences, just speaking the truth. I admired it, even as it scared me. I've spent so long keeping my emotions in check, I started, avoiding anything that could mess up my life, and yet here you are, breaking through all of that. Rafael smiled softly. Sarah, whatever this is, it's complicated. You're my nurse, I get it. But, don't we owe it to ourselves to at least be honest? I hesitated, torn between my professional instincts and the pull I felt toward him. I don't know, I admitted. I've never been in this kind of situation before. Neither have I, he laughed quietly, lightening the mood. But I'm willing to figure it out if you are. I wanted to say yes, to dive into whatever this was, but the practical side of me held me back. There were too many risks, too many reasons it couldn't work. And yet, sitting here with him, those reasons seemed small compared to how he made me feel. I don't want to hurt you, I whispered. Or make promises I can't keep. He reached out, brushing his hand against my cheek, a gesture so tender it hurt. I'm not asking for promises, just honesty. Whatever this is, I want it to be real. His words settled over me, comforting and terrifying all at once. With him, I didn't need to be perfect. I just needed to be me. But the sound of footsteps in the hallway pulled me back to reality. I quickly pulled away. We shouldn't do this here, I said, glancing toward the door. Anyone could walk in. You're right, Rafael said reluctantly, but his voice carried a quiet resolve. But this doesn't have to end here. My heart skipped at his words. There was something in his tone, a promise I wasn't ready to walk away from. I'll come back, I said before I could stop myself. After my shift. His face lit up, surprise and hope mixing in his expression. You mean that? I do, I said, a sense of relief flooding through me. But we have to be careful. He smiled, a look of warmth and understanding. I can do careful. The rest of my shift was a blur, my mind too consumed by thoughts of Rafael. As the night wore on, I found myself standing outside his room again, hesitating just long enough to knock softly. When the door opened, I saw him sitting up in bed, his face lighting up at the sight of me. "You came," he said, disbelief in his voice. "I said I would," I replied, closing the door behind me. The room felt different now, more intimate, quieter. The hum of the monitors faded as I moved closer to him, my heart pounding. I didn't know where this was going, but I couldn't walk away. "I've been thinking about you all day," Rafael admitted, his voice soft. "I kept wondering if I imagined everything or if you'd change your mind." "I almost did," I confessed, sitting beside him. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you." For a moment, silence settled between us, not awkward, but filled with an unspoken understanding. "I don't know what this means," I said, my voice trembling. "But I want to find out." Rafael reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. "We'll figure it out together." In that moment, I stopped thinking about the rules or the consequences. I just thought about him. "Sarah," he said, breaking the silence. "I've never met anyone like you." "You don't have to say that," I murmured, but his grip tightened. "You're different," he said. "It's the way you care." "It's been a long time since I felt like someone really sees me." His words stirred something deep inside. I wanted to heal him, not just his body but whatever was broken inside. "You make it easy to care," I said, surprised by the honesty. We sat like that for a while, comfortable in the quiet. But the rational side of me screamed to pull away. "I should go," I said reluctantly, pulling my hand back. "It's late." He stopped me with a soft plea, "Just a little longer." I nodded, against my better judgment. "Okay, but just for a little while." Rafael patted the edge of the bed, and I sat down, keeping some distance between us. He leaned back against the pillows, his gaze never leaving mine. "Tell me something real about you," he said gently. I thought for a moment. I became a nurse to make a difference, but somewhere along the way, it started to feel like I wasn't anymore. His words hit me hard. "You've already made a difference for me." His touch grounded me. "You make me want to try again," I whispered. Rafael took my hand again. "You're more than you give yourself credit for, Sarah." The weight of his words made my chest tighten. I leaned toward him, and before I knew it, our lips met. The kiss was tentative at first, then deepened as we gave into the moment. When we pulled apart, breathless, his eyes searched mine. "If this is too much," he began. "It's not," I interrupted. "I want this. I want you." A slow smile spread across his face. "I've wanted you from the moment I met you." With that, everything else melted away. Nothing mattered except the feeling of being with him. The kiss deepened, pulling us into a world that felt like it was just ours. Mateo's hands roamed over my back, and I gripped his shoulders, steadying myself against the overwhelming intensity. It was like we had been waiting for this moment far longer than we realized. "I've dreamed about this," Mateo murmured. I pulled back slightly, searching his face. "You have?" He nodded, his thumb brushing my jawline. "It's more than just gratitude. You make me feel alive again." His vulnerability hit me hard, and I couldn't deny it anymore. "You're not the only one," I whispered. "I've been fighting this, but I can't anymore." "Then don't," he said simply, and I kissed him again, deeper, hungrier. Mateo guided me closer, his heartbeat steady beneath my palm. The weight of all the boundaries I tried to uphold fell away. I moved down, hearing his quiet murmurs of pleasure. It felt right, calm in a way I hadn't expected. As it ended, I moved up, letting him finish. "Wow, that was amazing," he said. After a brief silence, I asked, "Are you okay?" He smiled. "I'm more than okay. But you should stay a little longer." I laughed. "You're impossible." "Maybe," he teased, "but you seem to like me anyway." I warned, "Don't get cocky." "I wouldn't dream of it," he replied, his voice soft. "I just want to hold on to this, to you." His words took me by surprise. "You've got me," I said quietly. "For as long as you want." Without another word, he kissed me again, pulling me close. In that moment, the world outside his hospital room didn't matter. We stayed wrapped up in each other, talking in whispers, sharing quiet moments that felt stolen from reality. "I don't want this to end," Mateo said, exhaustion in his voice. "Neither do I," I replied, resting against his chest. "We'll figure it out." As I closed my eyes, I allowed myself to hope for something real. To this day, I still think about that moment. I'm not sure if it was right, but I don't regret it. What do you think? Let me know in the comments.